Welcome to a live Giants feed. Not for any of you listening, I'm sure, but of Foggy with a Chance of Seagulls. My name, as always, is Clark. I'm joined by my pal Evan. The Giants are 5-5, 2 runners on in the bottom of the 10th right now. We're recording Sunday afternoon. Evan, are we going to pull this game out? People are going to judge you based on this opinion right now, so be careful.
You know, it's all about that rally Pelican right now. The town is talking about the Pelican. I think that the Pelican has changed the fortunes of our season, despite half of our roster being on the IL right now. I think the
Only
Pelican, the Pelican is the star that we've been looking for. We've been looking at the free agent market, but no, we need to look in the skies for the Pelicans. I'm currently on assignment in Hawaii, where you just were as well.
Yeah, we should have made that work a little bit better. Our trips at the same time, but no,
it's good.
Hawaii.
I think you got a little vacation from some mediocre Giants. It's been a couple weeks since we've done our last episode. Our ethos on this podcast is to keep things positive, and my mom told me, if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything. So that's
we've taken
that's
that
what we
to
chose
heart,
to do.
Pat Ma. Wise words from your mother, as always. I'll recap just briefly. Giants were in Boston and Philly. They decided not to play any of the games, I think, so we can just move right on from that series. No, we took one in Boston, got swept 4-game series by the Phillies. They might just be really good, was kind of my takeaway, and we are also not playing our best ball. What was it that Logan Webb said a couple days ago about the team? They're playing dog shit baseball or something.
Yes.
So
yes.
That was definitely true on the road trip. But we made it to Denver, not quite in one piece, which was all I was hoping for when we recorded last time. Stumbled to Denver, won 2 of 3 games. Giants have a knack for winning the first 2 games of a series and then just dying in the third game and not being competitive at all. That still happened, but at least we didn't get swept by the Rockies, which the defending champs Texas Rangers just did. Also, we've got Casey Schmitt up with 2 on and 2 out. This is wild right now. So that was the road trip. We split the first 2 games at home against the Reds. By the end of this episode, we might have the result. But it wasn't just the losing that kind of brought us down, Evan. What was the other kind of theme of this road trip?
Achy, breaky, everything. Everybody's got a wrist thing, a something, a hit, slamming into something. Right now, we have Jorge Soler, Nick Ahmed, Tom Murphy, Michael Conforto, Austin Slater, and Jung Hoo Lee all hurt right now. The silver lining of which is that the brigade is up, and we've emptied the farm to find some reinforcements. Buses everywhere, AA to AAA, single A to AA, double. It's everything's happening. But how today goes is really going to change how I feel.
Casey did it.
He did it.
Casey did it.
Wow.
Walk-off double, ground rule double, not that it matters, but ripped one into the left center corner.
Wow.
Matos could walk home. The Giants win. We take a series. How about those young kids?
Still think they should have brought up Luciano.
I love that.
Wow, Casey Schmitt with a moment. That's awesome.
I have such a soft spot in my heart for Casey Schmitt. Every time I watch him, it feels like he flailed. Oh, it was a fastball right down the middle. He just ripped it into the left center corner. Perfectly done. And
you know what? That's not a given that we hit those fastballs right down the middle this year, is it?
Hey, maybe the young guys can hit fastballs down the middle. What a concept. Pitcher. Here's my hot take. Pitchers league-wide have gotten the data on the Giants, and it's, hey, they can't hit fastballs down the middle. Now we intentionally injure all of our guys who can't hit fastballs, only to bring up the young guys who know how to swing the bat. What do we think?
Farhan sent a little, like, a security guard to just break a few bones here and there. Wow, that's a great win for the Giants. I mean, especially, how many did Harrison go? 5 today?
5.
But I checked it in the second or third, and it was like 3-0 Reds, and I was like, okay, classic. We're never going to win the last game of series, literally, ever. But they came back today. Who
did it.
Like, they had a 5-run inning. Who was the
So
the other hero?
Lamont hit a 2-run homer that was tied for the highest launch angle of any home run in the StatCast era. That home run would have gone out in one of 30 ballparks, and it went out at Oracle. It was just a moonshot pop-up, but snuck right inside the foul pole. Matt Chapman had just hit an RBI single before that. And then
Ramos had a single as well.
Ramos had an RBI single, and then a throwing error by Ellie De La Cruz, who really gives off Tatis vibes at shortstop. That, like, he's an incredible athlete, but sometimes he just does the wildest stuff.
Well, the speed of Blake Sable and Wilmer Flores are to be feared, and so that's why he ripped those 2 errors. I think he was just like, there's no way I'm not going to nail these guys, and then he just airmailed them ultimately. But wow, did we need that? Did we ever need that?
Well, and this gets to a theme going into this homestand. We were 9-7 at home, and now that brings us to 11-8. And like, ultimately,
sure doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I made that up. I gotta recheck my math. But like, ultimately, that's a very respectable record at home. And like, if you're winning at that clip at home and can come close to 500, which is not where we're at right now on the road, then that's a decent team. And yeah, it was brutal. It's probably good that we don't have our thoughts recorded from last week, because I was down in the dumps for sure. But no, this is a big win for the boys.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the biggest thing that was tough to watch with the Sox and the Phillies series was just how anemic the offense looked, how 2022-ish or 2023-ish it looked, and the Rockies and the Reds are not the Phillies and the Red Sox are. But we have been able to have at least, in the last few series, a few games where we're scoring above 5 runs, which was seemed impossible. Above 3 seemed impossible
too, which is good. Yeah.
And look, Casey Schmitt is the hero today. And he knew something that we didn't. He came into the season with the mustache. There's the whole thing with the transparent pants, but the mustache is gone, and he's hitting a walk-off double. So I don't know. He's got a beat on what he needs to do. But he's
first hit of the year for him.
Really,
that was his first one. Efficiency.
Wow.
You love to see it.
And we're kind of at this point in the season. It's still early, but a lot of Giants fans are pretty destitute right now, and I'm kind of at a place where it's gonna have to be these young guys. I mean, right now you look at the people who've excelled thus far, and it's been, probably the most standout offensive performers to this point have been Wade and Bailey, and it's gonna take some other Rivercats and Flying Squirrels and San Jose Giants to pick up the pace. I mean, Ramos had a great game yesterday. Seeing his plays defensively, seeing him up has been awesome. And, Wisely's going to get a chance here. Matos is in today. He scored the winning run, I believe. Fitzgerald is getting more opportunities. So it's going to have to be these guys stepping up, because until we're shown otherwise, these free agent signings, and obviously all love to Jung-Hoo Lee. He's been doing great. There's that kind of non-article that the Giants told him that they're really proud of what he's doing, but
very cute,
really cute. But maybe he did need it, because seeing him frustrated, we don't like to see our Korean prince frustrated in that Sox series after he lost that ball and then made that play and slapped the ground. Wow.
Yeah. I kind of loved it at the same time. Because one of the tough things about having one of your best players not be English or Spanish speaking, for that matter, I feel like, especially for the Giants, Erwin Higueros does such a great job translating and just doing interviews in Spanish.
Yeah.
But the tough thing is you really don't get some of the personality. And I think his name is Justin Hahn.
Yes.
His translator. Sometimes I feel like his answers are too cutesy sometimes, or too like pure. And I have no way of knowing what Jung-Hoo Lee is actually saying, but sometimes he'll be like, yeah, Jung-Hoo just wants to do his best for the team. He really feels bad that he let the team down. And that could be his perspective. Who knows? I've never talked to the man, but sometimes I'd love to hear a little bit more like substance or grit. And so seeing him punch the ground after making the diving catch to save the run after he lost the ball in the sun was just cool to see, like, how competitive he is.
Yeah, no, he's
and
super
both
competitive.
Mikes came over and were like clearly like, hey, we got you. Like it was a cool moment.
Yeah, I mean the team loves him. I don't know if you've watched Shogun, that show on FX, but what's really cool about it is they kind of use translation as like a thematic device of like understanding that sometimes, you know, there's this character who translates between Portuguese and Japanese, and you see that selectively she chooses when to convey this thing, when to not. And in some of the preseason stuff, you actually on a minor level, but like you could kind of see that with like they'd put the translation of the Korean, and then you'd see what Justin Han said, and it was kind of it, but like not always it. And and you know, Jung-Hoo came in, and from the presser, it was fun, but underneath all of it, you see that he's a real competitor and he wants to win. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's been frustrating for him to not have the results there for the team and for himself personally. Obviously, we see how hard he hits the ball, how well he plays the outfield, but the numbers just aren't there yet. And, you know, at the beginning of the season, we're like, maybe there's no adjustment period, but this is the adjustment period right now, you know, and it's going to take some time. There's 30 teams with a gajillion pitchers that they cycle in and out, different from Korea, and it's taking some time to adjust. But yeah, I don't know. I have so much faith.
And I think what you're saying applies to so many of the guys on the team, and why in some ways, and you never root for injuries, but in some ways it's kind of cool that all of these injuries have happened together, because we've got such a strong kind of crew of young players in Sacramento together, and they can all kind of come up together. The Sacramento team's been playing really well, and this is the first time we've had a good AAA squad in years. And so being able to build that success kind of from the farm up, I think is really cool. Solaire's been struggling. Ahmed, the last couple of weeks, his offense has been what we expected Nick Ahmed to be. Tom Murphy has not gotten going, even though he had the 2 home run performance in the preseason game against the A's. And you and I immediately were like, hell yeah, Farhan cooked again. But I think, and Slater obviously has been struggling. So I think in some ways it's really great for the team to add that just jolt of youth and energy. Ramos being the first one, so deserved. We're going to talk about him in a second, but he's really brought that level of like competitiveness. It feels like it's kind of his last shot to prove it to this team. And that sense of desperation you kind of need a little bit. And it, I think, has jolted the team a little bit. Sable went from, you know, playing the entire year on the team to being immediately a AAA guy again. So he's been excited for his opportunity. I mean, Fitzgerald basically jumped Casey Schmitt this year. They obviously don't play the exact same position, but some of what Schmitt brings. So Casey coming up has that chip on his shoulder. Long story short, I think this could be a turning point, this series, and seeing this kind of youth cover for guys who are struggling, the veterans. And that doesn't mean they're going to take their jobs. I think there are 1 or 2 guys who could potentially, but more than anything, just the depth and showing that this is a roster of 40 who is going to try to make the playoffs this year. It's not just the guys on the 26-man roster.
Totally. I mean, I think it's kind of this dichotomy of what we're trying to do this year of establish continuity in the lineup, having everyday guys out there, knowing what's going to be the on-field product, and kind of this missive, which is not dissimilar from the Kapler days, but I think Melvin stated it this year of whoever is performing is going to be on the field. And we're kind of seeing a little bit of that mismatch and them not knowing how to navigate that in the early going. But now injuries, you know, and by the way, if you celebrate injuries, like, you should look in the mirror and talk to a therapist. But
Exactly.
But they've cracked the door open for some guys to like have some shots. And the Giants put out a video of Mason Black's Oracle debut from yesterday, and you know, he talked in it about how he was like, yeah, you know, the goal has just been to get to the majors. I see Kyle up here. I see Kyle. I see Sean. I see all these guys coming up, and that's the pipeline. And what's cool about our the minor league system right now, even though, we're still waiting for those like real hits to come out that we're like, this is a guy that you can put in the lineup every day. I think that there's a real sense of camaraderie there, a real sense of like people rooting for each other, feeling like a cohort that's like trying to make its way into the majors. And Mason, hey, Mason, let's quickly talk about him. He had a great, emotionally a great debut at the Phillies, but all his family was there. Beautiful moment. Ultimately, Bryce Harper got to him, but it's Bryce
Honestly,
Harper. I mean,
if we hadn't had such a rough string of games leading up to that and had to use our bullpen a ton, I think Melvin, which he did a couple days ago, taking him out after 4 innings, I think he does the same with him in that game, but he needed innings from him. And you heard it a little bit in the post game where Melvin's like, I know he hasn't been stretched out, but we wanted to see if we could get one more out of him. And then Bryce Harper comes up and hits a 3-run homer, which he, in 3 games, 2 against us and then 1 against, I think, the Pirates. I can't remember who they were playing, but he hit 3 home runs for 11 RBIs. And I was laughing because I don't think our entire team had scored 11 runs in those same 3 games. So it's been brutal. But Bryce Harper, good player, hot take. But yeah, Mason, he looks like he belongs. Maybe not, going 5 or 6 innings, but he can give us 3 to 4 right now and build off that. And yeah, it's fun to see him. A little frustrating that we didn't get him earlier watching him pitch because he absolutely has the poise. But
yeah, I mean, there's been this kind of flurry of roster moves lately. Farhan managed to get something back for Jeffries and who's the other one?
Mitch White, but it was just cash.
White.
I mean, still,
yeah, I'll take it. I mean, it's Mitch White. Like it's.
I'm glad I got my Mitch White story in before he was no longer a Giant. So that's. I'm just pleased.
It was really good that we got it. Yeah, but we're at this kind of inflection point and kind of seeing the way that like if some guys kind of keep quietly doing what they're doing, the Eric Millers, the Sean Jellies of the world, kind of stepping up to the plate a little bit. Then our fortunes are definitely going to look different. What do you think of the long man, Slender Man?
Yeah, the long slender man. Let's talk about him. No, I'm really happy for Sean Jelly. He reminds me so much of Elliot Ramos in the sense of like it feels like 2 years ago was their year to break out. It was like, okay, they've been minor leaguers, they've been kind of steadily going up, and both of them struggled a ton for a couple years. And we'll see I think the book is still out on Ramos, although the last 3 games have been great. But Jelly's been pitching so well. And his stuff is in the high 90s right now with sink. His knuckle curve is like sitting 86, 87. He's throwing the slider. He's throwing a little changeup. I mean, mostly I'm seeing him sinker curve, but it really feels like he's kind of locked into what is going to make him successful. And we talked about it after I think after the Mets series, because he had that outing against them. We lost 8-2. It was kind of a forgettable game. I was there, and Jelly was pitching really well in kind of that mop-up duty. And then threw a curveball to Lindor that was at his ankles, and Lindor hit for like a 2-run homer or something. And it was one of those, it's like, yeah, this is just going to happen. And I think the takeaway is actually, Lindor's amazing, but Jelly's pitching really well and is now slowly becoming a guy that Melvin's depending on.
Speaking to Melvin, I think that this is what he said coming into the season of that maybe he doesn't have the same biases that the front office / Gabe had in the past, and maybe guys like Jelly and Ramos were overlooked, and maybe it was the front office that's still wanting to do the things their way, but now injuries have forced their hand, and now it's kind of time to look at these guys and see what they can do over a longer look, because these injuries, these people are going to heal, but they're going to keep happening. I mean, there's right. Older guys on this squad. There's going to be opportunities to be had. So,
who from the young guys who've come up do you think with a good performance has the best shot of sticking?
That's a great question. I'm kind of surprised that I'd say this, but I think it might be Casey Schmitt, and I have a couple reasons why. One being, Luciano's numbers are getting better in AAA. Still only has the one homer, I think, on the year, which is a little bit concerning. But, Ahmed is Nick Ahmed. Like, we like watching him play shortstop. He plays a great shortstop, but he was always going to be a stopgap type guy. He's not going to be around for a long time. And Schmitt looks great out there. I mean, that double play the other day from Chapman to him that they turned doesn't really get that much better than that. And so from a perspective of playing short, there's such an opportunity there. And also, Matt Chapman obviously had that huge grand slam yesterday. And hopefully this is a moment that can change his season a little bit. But there's opportunity there. Like, he doesn't have to play out there every single day. Schmitt can spell him at third. He can spell at shortstop. And, Fitzgerald we're throwing around everywhere in center field, in the infield or whatever. So there's room for both, actually, and especially with the amount of injuries that we have. So I think there's a couple other guys out there, but who would be your pick?
I think that's the right pick, but I think Ramos has the best chance to show that he's a difference maker in the lineup.
Yeah.
I think the points you were making were all correct, that for Schmitt, it's if you can hit a little bit better than Ahmed, then there's an argument to be made, but that's still that's barely a 700 OPS. Like, that's not really asking that much, but it's mostly a defensive consideration. But for Ramos, I mean, I think the team is still very satisfied with Slater and Conforto. Slater got a concussion, so he should be back maybe in the next week, 10 days. They're calling Conforto's hamstring strain mild, so that could be 2 to 3 weeks. But I think if he proves it, then when Soler gets hurt again, he's the first one up. When Yastrzemski gets banged up, if Lee's going to miss some time, it's any outfield spot, Ramos immediately gets elevated and I think becomes the starter. So there's a path for him to impress, and he brings a different aspect to the lineup than guys like Slater or some of the other guys in that outfield. So
yeah, he really does. And obviously, like, kind of the direct swap is that he comes up for because Soler goes down. But we talked about it, but defensively, really impressed from right and from left. Yeah. And so do you think maybe,
game, no less? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the assists were unreal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think seeing that, well, you go, okay, well, you can slot him in right or left and he can take that spot. And then maybe you push somebody else to that DH spot. And then, who we haven't talked about yet is Lamont Wade is in line for playing every day. I mean, he deserves.
Yeah.
What do you see from him right now that's like different?
Well, he's hitting lefties. And not only is he hitting them, I mean, he's taking a lot of walks against lefties, which he did last year too, actually. He just didn't get a lot of hits. But I saw a couple days ago, he was like batting 400. He was like 4 for 9 against lefties on the year with 4 walks. And it's like, I mean, that's not surprising. We watch him every day and go, every at bat goes 3-2. I mean, we make these jokes, but it's like Brandon Belt reincarnated. It's like,
it is.
Just put the count at 3-2, let him call his own strike zone, and plays good defense at first. I mean, I think he's the only legitimate everyday player right now who other teams would covet offensively.
Yeah.
I mean, Chapman and Jung-Hoo Lee are bringing it defensively amid their struggles. And, we know guys are going to get on track, or we hope at least. Bailey might be the only other one, but I think we need to see it a little bit more from him. But this is, 3-4 years now with Lamont where he just is a really good hitter.
Yeah. What is our best lineup when healthy? I mean, you mentioned 2 components of it, but who else fills that out?
Yeah. So Lee and Wade at the top 2 spots, I think, is just entrenched there. I thought it was interesting today, even though Patrick Bailey got scratched because of an illness, Bob Melvin had him DHing and batting in the 3-hole, which I thought was fascinating.
Oh, interesting.
So it was already a planned day off for him catching, but they wanted his bat in the lineup, which speaks volumes. And again, part of the, I don't want to say benefit because we're not cheering for Soler to get hurt, but one of the things that's nice about his injury is it opens up spots for other guys to get playing time, or just see who Melvin is prioritizing or feeling good about. But I do feel like Bailey deserves that top 5 kind of slot. Soler is there, when he's healthy, when he's right. I think Conforto as well. Chapman, maybe that 6th spot. Yaz 7, Tyro 8, shortstop 9. Insert shortstop here. That's kind of what I would go off, kind of a broad stroke. But yeah, any of those that you feel like you would switch out or change up?
I don't know. I think that it's really going to be such an evaluative period for the team right now that I think it's going to look a lot different in a month. And I think that there will be slowly pieces coming back, both on the position player side and the pitching side, that are really going to change the makeup of the roster. I think we see Snell finally doing what he should have done to begin with, and making some rehab starts in San Jose. I think you mentioned he had an immaculate inning, which I don't know how much that means in low A, but it's
pitched
something.
An inning and no balls, all strikes, 3 strikeouts. He said afterwards that he wants to go up to Sacramento for at least a start, and I'm glad. Love seeing that. Yeah, I'm really glad about that too.
His kid is due soon, so I don't know exactly when we're going to see him, but take your time, bro. I think we got it figured out. I will say, is there anything that we should be worried about with Logan Webb, or is it just going to course correct itself?
I think it's so interesting because right before it were 3 of the best starts anyone could have had. And then 2 really, or I guess 3 really rough starts in a row. I truthfully have not watched his starts closely enough to say one way or another, but I trust in Webby.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I think it's a similar line to the spring training thing, but what's a little bit happening in my estimation is I feel that like our pitchers are kind of pressing a little bit. I think because I'm guessing that they're feeling like, well, how else am I going to win besides staying in for as many pitches as I can throw, keeping the score as low as possible. And I think when that happens, I think guys get a little bit out of like just getting up there and just taking things pitch by pitch. And
that's a thing that I've been really impressed with Kyle Harrison. And today was another example of it. There have been a few starts this year where he's had a big inning against him, or I mean, a big inning, but like 3 runs scored against him in the first or second inning. And in each of those starts, I think I shouted one out when we played the Marlins, and he gave up 3 runs in the second. I wrote a post about it too, where gives up 3 runs and then shuts them out and goes 6 innings. And it's one of those that like a young pitcher, and we've seen it with Keaton Winn a couple times. He's given up that one big inning early, and then he's out of the game in the second inning. And so then our bullpen has to, cover innings, and it has this trickle down effect. And I'm so impressed with Kyle's ability. Today he had 5 walks and 5 strikeouts. He threw 98 pitches in 5 innings. That's not a great start, but when he left that game, we were down 3-0. He had stabilized after giving up all those runs in the first inning. Yep. And then we score 5 runs and he comes out of the game. He was in line for a win if Ryan Walker didn't give up the lead, which, he's been dependable. You can't hate Ryan Walker for that. But no, just shout out Kyle Harrison, who's just so impressive, to the point you're making too, that like he could get in his head trying to be perfect. And he's consistently giving us a chance to win. I'd actually be curious. I wish I would have pulled this up, what our record is in his starts, because it feels like we've won his starts more than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, he had that great start in Denver last week. Like his breaking stuff was playing. And I think that's the job of a major league starter, right? Is like getting out there and gutting it through when you don't have your best stuff and finding a way to compete. And the fact is he's done that, and it's really encouraging to see. Wynn's had a couple of rough ones, but I think extenuating circumstances a little bit with the fever and the altitude and all that stuff. So I'd love to see him bounce back. But just looking forward to this week ahead. We've got a Dodgers series coming up. They are humming. And then, just what the doctor ordered, a little bit more Rockies at home, which we love to see. So,
which we will be in attendance for.
Exactly. I forget exactly where we're sitting. I think we're like 315, but if you're at the game, say what's up.
From section 315, Foggy with a chance of Sega.
Everybody in the section being like, shut the fuck up.
No, bro, let me Bro, let me do this ad read real quick.
If you want to sponsor us, yes, SeatGeek is not sponsoring us, but I think obviously the Dodgers are going, the Rockies are the Rockies, but it's time. We can't be making excuses of like this team's so good, so whatever anymore. It's like we're kind of out of time for Mulligan, so it's time we compete with the Dodgers. I think it's important we take at least one and look competitive in the series. Back as long as I can remember, we're basically like 500 against the Dodgers in the 2010s, 2020s, and it's time to get back to that. I mean, we have to like start putting together competitive series. Got to get good getaway days or last games of the series,
which we did. Hey, this was a big day today. And winning back-to-back series after the tough road trip. I mean, obviously that Colorado series win was part of that road trip, but just stringing series wins together. I'm not saying we're going to beat the Dodgers, but if we can at least be competitive, win a game or two, I mean, let's kind of build on this momentum, let the kids energize us, and then, we'll have thoughts from our time at Oracle Park.
I think we're both seeing 2 games from that series, so we'll have many, many thoughts.
We will.
And just to all listening, make sure you say your prayers to the Pelican before you go to sleep tonight, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Foggy with a Chance of Seagulls.